Let's go.
Welcome to the Integrative Edge, your go-to podcast for fresh perspectives on holistic health and functional movement. Join us as we explore innovative ways to optimize your health naturally and sustainably.
I'm Kelly Demers, founder of the Integrative Wellness Coalition and the owner of True North Performance.
I'm Lindsay Seefeld, doctor of physical therapy and owner and operator of Uplifted Oncology Rehab.
I'm Dr. Kimberly Klimek, licensed pharmacist and owner of Innate Healing and Performance.
You can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Welcome back to the Integrative Edge, your podcast where we explore innovative ways to optimize your health naturally and sustainably. I'm your host, Kelly Demers, and as always, I am joined by my two amazing co-hosts, Dr. Lindsay Seefeld and Dr. Kim Klimek. Today's topic dives deep into, today's episode dives deep into a vital topic, how to reduce toxins in your home and why this matters now more than ever. So I want to take a step back and really start with the big picture here. Every day we are exposed to a cocktail of chemicals, from the air we breathe indoors to the products that we apply on our skin. And this constant exposure builds up in our bodies and contributes to something known as oxidative stress. And if you're not familiar with that term, I know I wasn't until a few years ago. I'm going to do the 5,000 foot view and I'll have Kim take a deeper dive. Lindsay can do the same. Oxidative stress happens when there's an imbalance between harmful free radicals and the antioxidants your body needs to stay in balance. The imbalance is what leads to cellular damage, inflammation, and eventually chronic disease. What we now know is that oxidative stress is at the root of many medical conditions: heart disease, autoimmune disorders, neurological decline, asthma, infertility, and even some cancers. So what we see and hear from a coaching perspective, we see clients walk in and they talk about brain fog or fatigue or hormone imbalances, but they have no idea that their home environment might be contributing. So I want to ask, what exactly is happening in our bodies when we're exposed to those toxins over time?
Yeah, you kind of said it right there, is just kind of like cellular damage, or it's like a slow cellular damage over time, I would say, or even just like cellular compromise, right? Like, so we all have these nice, beautiful cells. They're made up of these like little phospholipid bilayers, and I always draw people a picture sometimes, like when I'm talking about it to clients, is that when you get exposure to a certain amount of chemicals, they'll kind of sit in the cell membrane, and then that kind of gunks up your cell, for lack of better terms, and then your cell, it has a million different jobs, right? And then our mitochondria, which are the cellular powerhouses, start to become compromised, and then that's going to lead to decline in lots of different organ functions because the cell's not able to carry out its job.
So how do those toxins, how do they influence things like hormone regulation or overall inflammation, immune response? And I'll throw this out to both of you.
Yeah, we're definitely going to dive into that for sure. But it affects cell signaling at the end of the day, because they can compromise your receptor sites. So, and again, going back to the cell, each of our cells have these little receptor sites. It's like a fork, a prong. I tell people kind of look at it like that. And in order for your cell to function or to kind of carry out its operations, we usually have to have some form of like a hormone or some type of chemical signal that comes in there and binds in that little receptor site. So when you get exposure to chemicals or toxins, that actual receptor site becomes blocked off. So then, as you can imagine, you start to maybe experience like hormonal imbalances, brain fog, fatigue, chronic other inflammation type symptoms, because you're not really getting those cellular messages to your cells.
Dr. Lindsay, from your lens as a physical therapist, how does chronic toxin exposure impact recovery and pain and just inflammation and even mobility.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with all this toxicity built up, so, being exposed externally and even internally, we'll be talking about that, but, different foods have pesticides and all this kind of stuff. So as it's getting in our body, just as Kim had mentioned, it gunks things up. It slows everything up. And this includes, all our vital organs. This includes our lymphatic health. And things get very sluggish and slow. And that doesn't help for the great oxidative energy that goes through our body. And with healing properties, for example, everything is so slow when we're gunking everything up. So if you have an injury, if you have a wound, it just makes everything that much slower to heal.
Perfect. I want to break down when we say our environment might be causing some of that, the toxicity load in our systems. I want to break down what we mean by the environment. So if you think about your house, and the first place people think of when I say, well, we're going to clean the house is usually the kitchen or the bathroom. And ironically, the very products that we use to clean are sometimes some of the most toxic. I think most conventional cleaners have chemicals like ammonia and chlorine bleach, synthetic surfactants. That's the stuff that makes it spreadable on the countertops. And fragrance is a word that seems harmless. However, anytime you just see fragrance, just the red flag should be going off, because while it sounds right, while it sounds harmless, that is, it can actually hide hundreds of unlisted ingredients, and those chemicals that are in the fragrance are often respiratory irritants. They are endocrine disruptors. They are known triggers for people that suffer from migraines and even allergies. So when you look at some of the most harmful ingredients that are in some of our household cleaners, what comes to mind?
Yeah, you definitely listed a couple of those things off right there with the bleach and the chlorine and things. And then oftentimes when I'm breaking this down a little bit to clients, I got my little list here even today, but some more hidden toxins or things that you want to look out for in terms of if you're looking at ingredient lists is some of the more maybe not well known to people, but well known, I would say, especially in the functional space, is these endocrine disruptors. And a big one is BPA. So BPA it's short for bisphenol A, and it's basically a chemical additive used to make certain plastics and resins. So again, it's going to be found in plastic water bottles, food can linings, and thermal paper receipts. So it's I've even told clients, it's when you go to the grocery store and stuff, try to turn down that paper receipt that they're giving you, or I don't know. I've even since we were here in the winter, I'll take gloves and just take it while I'm wearing gloves, or just ask them to put it in the bag. And I'm still even thinking about all the people working at the cash register. I'm they don't really realize they're getting so much BPA exposure just from those receipts. It's incredible. But anytime we go shopping, really, it's you get a receipt for everything. So each time you're getting a little exposure, because everything we touch, we absorb through our skin. So that's one of them. Another one's phthalates or PFAS chemicals, which those are called forever chemicals. And again, these are synthetic chemical compounds. And then when you hear the term PFAS, again, it's short for forever chemical. So they stick around in your body for a really long time. They're very persistent in the environment and the human body. And that's why they're called the PFAS chemicals, because they're hard to get out of the body. But even PFAS chemicals, they were used back in the 1940s in products to resist heat, oil, stains, grease, and water. And essentially they don't break down easily, and they just build up in the body. And they have been linked to cancer, thyroid dysfunction, immune dysregulation for people. So we have to start thinking about those types of things. And again, people are just really unaware. And then and we'll talk about the sources, right, that you're going to look for in your home and your environment, work, wherever you're at. And then the last one, the big one, is microplastics right now at this time. It's crazy, but even just the microplastics are basically tiny little plastic fragments. And again, these are usually less than 5 millimeters in length, but sometimes they'll break off into larger plastic items. But we care about it is because the accumulation of each of these components over time is really what comes to fruition or full effect when you start to experience like chronic health conditions.
For sure.
Yeah.
Dr. Lindsay, when patients are already dealing with inflammation or pain, how does exposures to these types of toxins worsen their symptoms or delay recovery?
Yeah, I just want to point out that it's amazing the amount of clients that come through my door that don't really understand the impact, the impact that these toxins have on their body, especially when individuals are coming to me with a lot of lymphatic inflammation type issues, because this is a lot of times the source and the big cause of some of the inflammation in their bodies. When I'm going through a client, initial assessment, that's like the first thing we talk about is, okay, what are you doing for your home environment and or eating to really decrease the amount of exposure to these toxins? Because as I had mentioned, with all these different things that Kim had talked about, it builds up that toxicity in your body and that increases the inflammation response. And what happens is it just is an overload over time, and you get more inflammation in your body, and your body is already struggling trying to figure out how the heck to get rid of this. Some of these different like microplastics and all these other toxins, our body is like trying to figure out how the heck to get rid of them. And then over time, it just keeps building and building. And that inflammation is what stays. And then you're going to start noticing different things, like patients will come in like, I'm feeling puffy, I'm having sore joints, I have fatigue, muscle aches. And these are all just signs and symptoms that, you have inflammation response because potentially that these toxins are overtaking you.
Yeah. And I tell them I try to explain it to them like your cells are compromised. And then if we see those lab markers higher, whatever, we're looking at the inflammation markers or hormones out of balance, like a still, that's where I'm like, okay, why? Why is that out of balance? We have to go through this little checklist, and when we're looking at things, and it's like, okay, if your diet is really good, anti-inflammatory, like what's your environment? What are you putting on your skin, your face? Like every day, what are you exposed to? It's sort of like that next layer and that next level that people don't really often think about, because they're just like, oh, well, the government said XYZ is the recommended limit, and it's just like, well, you're not really thinking about the cumulative effect over time. Like, yes, it's okay in this small amount, but most people are beyond that now. And we hear so much of this, like talking about the toxin bucket, right? When then it spills over, right? Because we just keep accumulating a little bit over time, unless you're actively doing things to support sweating, lymphatic drainage, liver flushing, these things that actually pull chemicals off of our receptor sites.
Absolutely. I think when you look at, the totality of cleaning supplies, just, what we've talked about so far, it can be really overwhelming. So usually what we tell people is you don't have to go through the house and throw everything out. Just make one small swap at a time. Maybe it's getting rid of the cleaner in exchange for kind of a do-it-yourself mix of water, vinegar, and some essential oils. Tea tree and lemon essential oils are great for cleaning. They're effective, they're simple, they're low-cost solutions. I want to move to something, and I've talked about this earlier. I had mats in the facility here, and we were gassing them off. So I thought, I'll put some Febreze plugins here, and it'll make it smell nicer when we first moved in. And again, it just didn't think. And Tina, one of the coaches here, was yanking them out of the wall as soon as I was plugging them in. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." But
you were learning.
Right. But it is a category that I think surprises a lot of people, right? Because air fresheners and room deodorizers and scented candles and plugins, they make your house smell quote unquote clean, right? So you like to use them, but often they are masking the air quality issues and introducing new toxins into your environment. So things, and I think you've hit on some of this, but paraffin wax, synthetic fragrance oils, aerosol propellants, all of those release VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds, into the air, which can contrite to a host of other things, right? Asthma, headaches.
New furniture, I've heard,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. There are even neurological effects with this long-term that can come with long-term exposure. So What kind of internal stress does exposure to VOCs create in the body? And then how does that affect, to Kim, what does it do in the body? And then to Lindsay, for people that have chronic illness, how does that work against them? How does that affect them?
Yeah, I think I wanted to make sure we touched on this point, especially like just the chemical exposures in general, like why you care about it for sure. Like why we talked about in the beginning about like oxidative stress and basically the damage to the cell that it causes over time, and then the cell's not able to function. But a lot of it too, like a lot of these chemicals and some of the ones that I just mentioned, endocrine disruptors, we also call them xenoestrogens. And so I really wanted to hit on that too, because many a times when I'm doing hormone testing for clients, when they're coming in complaining of heavy periods, painful periods, heavy bleeding, clotting, fibroids, cysts, irregular menstrual cycles, bloating, brain fog, mood swings, like those are a lot of, especially like the breast tenderness, those are all big signs of estrogen dominance in the body. And we can have multiple other things going on, right? Like maybe there's luteal phase deficiency, whatever. But the estrogen dominance, that's all when they see those numbers on the paper, yes, I can usually easily correlate it with their symptoms. Like I can tell that they have estrogen dominance, but sometimes like getting those numbers on the paper, I really feel moves the needle for them in terms of actually making a change. But I show them, like, okay, you want to understand why we're having higher rates of breast cancer and things like that in society right now, and it's happening younger and younger. It's because of this, the xenoestrogens, the buildup of the chemical exposures over time. So what that does is it affects their hormone receptor sites as well. And again, for males, this can be true too, because a lot of males can have some excess of estrogen exposure as well. But the chemicals, again, they're going to come and bind on the receptor sites, and then it's going to block off hormone signaling, which affects not only fertility, thyroid function, hormone balance, immune function, and then again, linked to various other cancers. So people just are unaware that that's kind of the very first place I even begin, what is to start to clean up some of these common sources, which we can talk about further as well.
Yeah. I want to give an example. I think I've got a really great client that when we talk about like the overload and the diseases that come apart. So this client of mine was exposed to a lot of mold in her environment. And she didn't really know what was going on. She went to see a lot of medical doctors, and then finally, they discovered like her liver function was really declining. She was getting massive headaches, just fatigue all over the place. And then they discovered that her house was infested with mold. Mm-hmm. So she comes to me, with all of this toxicity and her liver function's not working right. And so we're trying to get that liver moving better, so that her body can help dump this excess mold. And it's amazing, as she's healing, a lot of her symptoms are resolving. And, the other thing that she pointed out too, that, her functional provider has suggested is, and I didn't think about this either, is like coffee. We drink coffee, a lot of us drink coffee every day, but some of the coffee out there is very full of mold as well. So I'm like, it's just amazing how, like, as you are aware of this toxicity, as I'm learning too, I'm like, well, I never thought about the fact that some of the coffee is really infested with mold. So it's just like looking at those little things and changing, it can really make a big, profound impact.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. What impact, we talked about air quality a little bit. What impact does air quality have on physical health, respiratory recovery, especially those that are dealing with chronic pain?
Yes. Well, when we're dealing with the lung function, if we're having a lot of toxicity, that can bring on a lot of, like the asthma type effects. And, that can really slow down even like the rate of how our body, oxygenates the muscle tissue. If we're not everything is so clogged up in our lungs, and that slows up the recovery of everything if somebody is injured. So it really, yeah, if you're already suffering a lot, you're breathing all of the different toxic fumes and all the air fresheners and all that kind of stuff, it binds and it blocks and it increases that toxicity, and your body just can't, oxygenate as well as it should.
For sure. I love good smells. So if you are also in that same ilk, for those looking to clean up your air a little bit, beeswax candles are a great alternative, essential oil diffusers, even putting in like a pot of water. You can do orange peels and cloves if you've ever done that. It smells amazing. But the other thing is let's not underestimate the power of opening a window. I mean, not if you're facing Canada, you might want to think twice right now. But for the most part, there is opening a window sometimes can just get things moving a little bit. Speaking of air quality, which just reminded me of something, Kim, you bought last year, I remember us talking about it around Christmas time, the HEPA filter, and you were like, oh, it's on sale right now. Can you talk about...
my air doctors.
So Air Doctor was one of them. And can you just talk about what purpose, what
I had bought it's basically an air filter. I had bought just one, I think like the mid-level size one for my bedroom, because you spend half your life there, or at least you should be if you're sleeping good. But you spend half your life there, and I was like, I'm just gonna see what this like air filter is all about. And I just I noticed such a huge difference in terms of like sleep quality and just like air quality, and it was so interesting. Then I ended up, I was like, I want more of these because they say it's only gonna travel so far, the size for a certain space, and we have a huge basement, and I have all my workout gear and everything down there, so I'm like, okay, I want one of these big ones for down in the basement, because it does feel kind of stuffy down there, right? And I feel like all of our homes have some form of like dust, and that's that's kind of where even like mold can kind of begin with, right, depending on your humidity and things like that. So I wanted one for the basement and then one for my work office at home. And it's just because I think the other component of why I wanted one too is I love opening a window, but then in the summer, my husband's like, don't open those because I have the AC on and blah, blah. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? So I'm like, I need this air filter. But I was learning about it too, and just how important our air quality is. But when you think about it, I mean, I had come from working as a pharmacist, I was working in the basement most of the time, at hospitals. So it's just such a stuffy work environment. It's such a amazing feeling when you would go outside for a walk, even on your lunch break. You could just tell the difference between the air quality of working in a building that's just how we are now in society. We work a 9 to 5 in a stuffy building. You maybe get, your 30-minute lunch break for sun. And it's just, there's a lot of repercussions to our health for that. So that's where we're always encouraging people to get outside, to get for a walk, get sunlight, those types of things. And now I'm really blessed that I can do that with owning my own business and things like that. But the air quality thing was super important to me. And I think just the fact that I was sleeping better with it was all I really needed to know. But it's crazy because even my bathroom is right next to the bedroom. And even if I sprayed a little bit of hairspray or something like that, that thing goes off
wow.
It is far away. You can see it I'm like, oh, it's so sensitive to one little chemical exposure. So it's kind of unique. And even my husband come in from work, because he sometimes will install fireplaces or whatever, he put his dirty clothes one time and it went off, and I was like, this is wild, how good it filters the air.
For sure.
And it does help. We recently discovered that my second son is allergic to cats and dogs, and guess what? We have cats and dogs in the house. So we have created a safe space in his bedroom. So no animals are allowed in there. We deep cleaned everything, and we have an air filtration system in his room. I'm telling you, this kid, I think, sleeps so well now, and it does make a huge difference having that air filtration system in your area.
Yeah.
So I know from last year watching Kim, they go on sale in November. So if you're interested, the things to watch for in November and December. I want to go into the bathroom cabinet, because this is another one that is wild to me, is personal care products that are filled with phthalates and parabens and formaldehyde releasing preservatives and synthetic dyes, and all of which we are rubbing onto our skin and they're getting absorbed. Your skin is your largest organ, and what you put on it matters. So things like makeup and lotions and shampoo and deodorant, they all contribute to that toxic load. What do you see as the most concerning ingredients in everyday cosmetics and lotions?
Oh yeah, it's definitely like the phthalates and the PFAS chemicals in some of those. And then I even think about like women's like tampons and things like that with the bleach. And yeah, the skincare products, the makeup, the lotion, perfume, all that stuff, it's very people just sometimes they're just like, oh, I'm just going to get away with, maybe I eat organic and stuff, but I'm still going to use my Bath and Body Works candles. I'm like, it really definitely makes me cringe when I see that, especially for the younger gals. Like, there's a lot of moms out there who are unaware and they're still just having their kids kind of put it on. And it really kind of breaks my heart because I know down the road, like I'm very much about prevention. And I know down the road, again, they're not experiencing the side effects now, but when they start having their period and they're going through these hormonal changes and they're still using all those products, it will come to fruition, very likely. And that's just kind of like, you want to stop it now, and you see these things and you want to help, but it's hard, because it's hard, I would say, especially for the younger gals out there, because they're like, well, my friends use this, right? Like all my friends use this and it's fine. So it's just hard. I think it's a difficult conversation, but a lot of my clients, like they will come and they're trying to teach their daughters like good habits and stuff. So I think it's just like important to have that conversation. It's not like a restriction based thing. It's more like this is for the better of your health in the long run one day. So those conversations usually going on.
I think it's just setting an example, like, purchasing the items for your home, like I try to do that with my daughters too now is, like I'm only buying really good lotions for them to use. And, they will not use bad hair product, like the shampoo and conditioner are all natural. So it's the same thing. Like I think for moms out there, if you've got young ones, it's like really trying to set it up early and just buying those correct products when they're young.
Mm-hmm.
I always have conflict over sunscreen, right? Because you want the sunscreen on you because you want to protect yourself against the sun, but then you look at some of the ingredients in the sunscreen and you wonder what's doing more damage. So it's interesting, but there are ways to check cosmetics, shampoos, makeup. There are apps out there. There's Yucca, it's Yuka. I have it downloaded. You can scan things and they'll tell you if there are harmful ingredients, and they break them into just bad, fair, and good ingredients. And if you find one that is, say out of a rating of 100, so if you find one that's maybe 10 out of 100 rated, that would be bad. But they will give you examples in the app of good choices, right? Things that you can choose that would be healthier options. EWG, if you've not heard of that organization, they have a website or an app as well. Same concept. Scan it; it'll give you the rating for that particular product as well as options to make healthier choices. For those looking to transition into healthier products, I would recommend checking those two apps. Both are free, easily downloadable.
I wanted to, so we're like, a lot of those are product-based things too, but I'm always just telling them too, like, we got to clean out your plastics, like in your kitchen too. Like
that's where I'm headed,
Everybody's has plastic containers, like that's just the thing we did back in the days. Everything goes in a plastic container, but it's like, that leaches into your food, and then it's worse when you heat it up, even in the microwave. That's definitely a no-no. So making the adjustment to get a glass container. It's going to last you longer anyways. And one of the other big things is your cookware. The nonstick cookware, the stain-resistant cookware, that kind of stuff. It's a lot of it does have chemicals and toxins, so you got to get some clean companies, and I usually give a list of that to clients and go from there, because you use that every day. You're using your cooking stuff every day, basically.
And cutting boards, plastic cutting boards.
I was going to say, there's so many things in the kitchen that you don't think of. It's cookware, it's plastic containers, it's the nonstick pans. Even the soft plastic water bottles that you put the drinks in for the kids and send them on their way. So making the swap to glass obviously is a great one. Caraway is a brand of pots and pans.
The green pan.
The green pan, glass containers are a big one, and I'm starting to see more ceramic. What are your thoughts on those? The ceramic containers. Caraway has ceramic containers that you can move from, kind of the refrigerator to the oven. I know Costco has some of them. Thoughts on those?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's just basically finding a reputable company for sure that that their product is quality stuff.
When we look at endocrine disruptors that coming through the food and cookware, how does that burden our liver, gut, hormonal systems? What's happening there with the...
Yeah, I was going to say, Lindsay will probably agree with me. It starts to lead to constipation for people more often than not. And then, the mechanism, right, is to shut down things and have your body close up, right? And that's just the mechanism of a total of whether it's toxin load, microorganisms, like she was talking about mold exposure. That's a whole topic in itself for sure. But the mechanism is to shut down the organ so that it's not able to function. And that's what these chemicals do over time. And it's, again, disrupting all your hormone signaling, energy levels, brain fog. Yeah.
Even, Lindsay, I would imagine that in addition to brain fog and memory things, fatigue, joint pain,
Yes.
Muscle soreness, stiffness, mobility.
Yep.
Could be contributors.
Yep. So those are very common signs that there's definitely an exposure or inflammation kind of happening or overload kind of happening. Yes.
Simple swaps. I know Kim had mentioned already the move to glass storage containers, ceramic, stainless steel, cast iron pots, right? Going back to the old way, but cast iron pots are a great one.
Yeah, it's when you're looking at the label now, they will say on it BPA free, even canned foods, they will say that on there, and you want to get those ones that are BPA free because canned food liners are one of the primary sources for BPA exposure, and they'll say phthalate free, fragrance free. Those are what you want to look for. But yeah, it shouldn't, even if it says fragrance at all, if they're not disclosing at all, then you want to run from that. Trying to say no to printed receipts when possible. Of course, choosing clean beauty products and non-toxic skincare. I mean, there's definitely a large movement right now for clean beauty products and skincare. We can list some of those companies for sure, but you shouldn't have difficulties finding one. And I'm always support somebody locally. If you're just trying to browse the internet or something, support somebody locally. Somebody makes beeswax candles, and there's a ton of, some of our local ones in Green Bay that I love to refer people to. There's Sweet Willow Herbal in De Pere. She makes she has organic teas and a lot of just natural body and skincare products there. We have the Favorite in Alloway. That's all just holistic herbs and non-toxic chemicals. I think Verde is a makeup company in De Pere. I don't know, you guys have any other ones too that you refer people to?
I usually refer people to Field and Flourish quite a bit, but I think Casa Organics as well is a great one. So.
Yeah, everything you had mentioned, those are the ones that I go to as well.
They're just small changes. You don't have to, it's hard not to get overwhelmed by some of the things that we're saying, but these small investments really will pay off in huge ways over time. So if somebody's listening to this and they're like, how do you actually get started with this detox without being completely overwhelmed?
I put this little even disclaimer in my notes for people. I'm going to read it right off from my note template that I use in my practice. I'm okay, it's not likely you're going to go home and throw everything away in one day. I urge you to consider when you run out of products you're currently using, be mindful to select a clean, healthy product next time around and make that your new normal. You're just automatically going to make sure that you're looking for clean products. The main point is, yes, to be aware of harmful chemicals and everyday use products that can contribute to endocrine disruption, and make clean choices as you progress in your awareness of how these can impact the body systems. Maybe start with something that you can do. Make one actionable step today, and then a lot of my clients, they'll just be okay, each paycheck I get or whatever, okay, the next time I'm gonna purchase a new pan or something. They tell me they're saving up and everything, and I'm okay, that is exactly what I did. None of this happened for me overnight. With my history of endometriosis, I was oh gosh, it's all estrogen. Where is it coming from? And then when you learn about where it's coming from, I didn't go home and throw everything away. I was just kind of like, I made some of the simple swaps at first. It was really just kind of like the stuff I was putting on my skin first. I think the cleaning products took a back seat just because I don't really clean a lot, but.
Well, it was a perfect segue, because my question to you was going to be, where should people focus if they want the biggest health return? Where do you focus first?
Yeah, I think we would say just what you're putting on your skin first and foremost, right? And then I think that next big move would be really like the kitchen, because that's the next area of what you use every day in terms of your cooking utensils, and then where you put leftovers and stuff like that, and then maybe the cleaning supplies kind of after that.
I love taking it one product, one room, one habit at a time, just making slow changes. The laundry dryer sheets to wool balls, those are easy swaps that aren't super costly.
And I think too, at the end of the day, like, again, nothing that I tell clients, and I'm like, you can't be perfect with everything. All right. We're not going to live our life based in fear, right? Like, for example, I always tell people, like, I swim in the pool 3 times a week. That's a lot of chlorine exposure, but I actively do some stuff, microdosing some iodine. I spray this little vitamin C spray on every time before I go into the pool. I spray it all over my thyroid, and I'm like, okay, at least I'm taking an actionable step, but I'm not going to live my life in fear. And I'm like, nope, I'm not going into the pool, because like a lot of people are learning about chlorine exposure and how that can, because a lot of people have pools in the summer and stuff, and it's a hot topic on Instagram, I would say, right now. But again, I think it's not living a fear-based life, but just knowing that, yes, you got to take a little. At the end of the day, we always talk about this, right? Like, health is work. But when you do these things, like, it just becomes habit, and you don't even think about it anymore.
For sure. I think if you look at really concentrating on progress over perfection, you give yourself a little bit of grace. What would you say to someone who wonders if, because they're not going to make 25 changes at once, someone who's wondering if these small changes will make a difference in their body's healing or resilience? What would you?
Well, it's definitely going to. And, I think you've got to start out somewhere. And so for me personally, like when I started cleaning up my home, I use those apps that you talked about, because I'm like, I don't know what's out there and what's best, because it really breaks them down, and you get a good sense of what is really bad in some of those ingredients, or some of those products, I should say. So, I mean, just take it a step at a time, slowly learn and really explore what's best out there for you.
For sure. Yeah. Here's the truth. Every small step that you take reduces your burden. And when you share your journey, you empower others to make healthier choices as well. So, final thoughts?
Yeah, just be aware of your environment and how that affects your health, I would say, and you start to just make some of these small changes over time. And to your original question there, it's like none of my stuff, even with like the estrogen dominance type symptoms that we listed earlier, none of those went away overnight. I had to keep on making the changes in the swaps in terms of the beauty products, the skincare, all that stuff. And then slowly but surely, it was like each menstrual cycle got a little bit better and wasn't dealing with painful, heavy periods. But nope, it's not going to happen overnight, right? We do have to give it a little bit of time. But just know that as you're doing it, those changes will be worth it in the long run.
Yep.
Yeah, she nailed it correctly. Ditto.
All right. If you are unsure of where to get started, we have it's called the Clean Swap. It's a workbook that is available on the True North Performance website. It's www.truenorthperform.com, and it will give you product recommendations, a couple DIY recipes, and then some printable checklists that will help make the transition to detoxifying your home a little bit smoother. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Integrative Edge. We hope today's deep dive into detoxing your home gives you the tools you need to make empowered, health-forward decisions. Be sure to recommend this to others that would benefit from this episode. Please click the subscribe button, and we are on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. See you next week.